Whoa,
Since the beginning of time, we have wondered how the universe came to be. A gloriously orchestrated plan? Or something much, much dumber?
Will you be my mate for life?
I'm breaking up with you.
What?
And what?
Shooting stars!
Oh, I'm gonna wish for the girl of my dreams. Oh, hello, mammals.
Buck, what are you doing here?
It's just beginning. The mother of all asteroids screaming towards you.
Crash and Eddie reporting for duty. you. You're so pretty. Oh.
Will you two quit it? Do you mind?
Bloodsucker!
The cave!
Hurry,
And we go.
What if one clumsy squirrel accidentally put the entire world in danger, filled with hilarious moments, thrilling adventures, and an epic race to save Earth Ice Age? Collision Course 2016 takes the Ice Age gang on their biggest journey yet. Welcome to Kakao Film, where we bring you complete movie reviews, hidden facts, and everything you need to know about your favorite movies. Ice Age. Collision Course is a 2016 American animated adventure comedy film produced by 20th Century Fox Animation and Blue Sky Studios. It is the fifth movie in the Ice Age series and continues the story after Ice Age. Continental Drift 2012. The film follows Manny, Sid, Diego, Buck, and the rest of the herd as they face their biggest adventure yet when a giant asteroid threatens to destroy Earth. At the same time, Scrat's endless chase after his beloved acorn accidentally sets this dangerous event into motion, putting the entire planet at risk. The movie was directed by Michael Thurmeyer and written by Michael Wilson, Michael Berg, and Yoni Brenner. Many of the original voice actors return to play their famous characters once again. Ray Romano voices Manny, John Leguizamo returns as Sid, Denis Leary voices Diego, Josh Peck returns as Eddie, Simon Pegg voices Buck, Sian William Scott returns as Crash, Jennifer Lopez voices Shira, and Queen Latifah returns as Ellie. The film also introduces several new characters voiced by singers and actors Jesse J and Adam Devine in this new adventure. The Ice Age herd must work together once again after Scrat accidentally launches himself into outer space while trying to bury his acorn. His actions create a chain of events that sends a massive asteroid speeding toward Earth. As disaster approaches, Buck leads the herd on an exciting journey to find a way to stop the asteroid before it destroys their world. Along the way, they face dangerous challenges, discover new places, meet strange new animals, and learn important lessons about friendship, family, and working together. Ice Age Collision Course had its world premiere at the Sydney Film Festival on June 19, 2016. It was later released in theaters across the United States on July 22nd, 2016. By 20th Century Fox, after its release, the movie received mostly negative reviews from critics. While many praised its colorful animation, family friendly humor, and fun action scenes, others felt that the story was weaker than the earlier films in the series. Despite the mixed reviews, the movie performed well with audience around the world. The film earned more than $408 million worldwide against a production budget of around $105 million. Although it did not perform as strongly in North America as previous Ice Age movies, it became much more successful in international markets, where it attracted large audiences. The successes of the franchise continued with a spin off movie called The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild, which was released in 2022. Another sequel titled Ice Age Boiling Point is also scheduled for release in 2027, continuing the adventures of the beloved Ice Age characters for a new generation of fans. After the events of the previous movie, Peaches is now engaged to a kind and friendly mammoth named Julian. Although Julian truly loves Peaches, her father Manny does not approve of him. Manny thinks Julian is too clumsy, talks too much. Later, it was rewritten and would not be able to protect Peaches if danger ever came. His worries become even greater when Peaches tells her parents that she and Julian plan to travel around the world for their honeymoon. Many, it was rewritten. Manny and Ellie are not happy of the idea because they are afraid something bad might happen to their daughter. At the same time, Diego and Shira begin thinking about starting a family of their own. They want to have children, but they worry that their kids may never have friends because many young animals are frightened of saber toothed tigers. Meanwhile, Sid decides that it is finally time to marry his girlfriend Francine. He prepares a romantic proposal and hopes she will say yes. Instead, Francine suddenly breaks up with him, and later it was rewritten, leaving Sid heartbroken and feeling lonelier than ever before. As Manny and Ellie celebrate their wedding anniversary with all of their friends, the peaceful day suddenly turns into chaos when giant asteroids begin falling from the sky. Rocks crash all around them, and the herd barely escapes before taking shelter inside a nearby cave. Far below the surface, in the hidden dinosaur world, Dasoto world, Buck is on another adventure. He returns a stolen Chasmosaurus egg to its mother after rescuing it from three flying dromaeosaurs. During his journey, Buck discovers an ancient stone pillar covered with mysterious carvings. Believing it contains an important warning, he brings it back to the surface and reunites with Manny and the rest of the herd. Buck explains that the ancient carvings tell the story of two massive asteroid impacts that caused huge extinctions long ago. According to the pillar, another asteroid is now heading toward Earth. He believes the answer to stopping it can be found at a nearby volcano where previous asteroids once landed because the carvings suggest that these giant space rock always strike the same location. Unfortunately, the three dromaeosaurs secretly overhear Buck's explanation. Their leader, Gavin, decides to stop the herd. Since flying dinosaurs can escape the asteroid by taking to the skies, Gavin believes they should let the asteroid destroy all other life on Earth. This would allow dinosaurs to rule the planet without competition while also giving him revenge against Buck. Gavin's son, Roger, is uncomfortable with the plan, but his father forces him to help. As the herd continues its dangerous journey toward the volcano, Buck notices something unusual about the fallen space rocks. He discovers that the asteroids have powerful magnetic properties. Buck comes up with a clever idea. If they can launch enough smaller magnetic asteroid pieces into space, those rocks might pull the giant asteroid away from Earth before it crashes. The journey is filled with dangerous obstacles, difficult terrain, and constant attacks from Gavin and his family. Eventually, the herder reaches a hidden paradise called Geotopia. This amazing place is home to a group of animals who have remained young for many years because they live among glowing crystals that came from an ancient asteroid. While exploring Geotopia, Sid meets a cheerful female ground sloth named Brooke. She immediately falls in love with him, making Sid happier than he has been in a long time. Buck explains his plan to Shangri Lama, the wise leader of Geotopia. However, Shangri Lama refuses to let them use the magical crystals because they are the source of the Geotopians' long lives. Without the crystals, everyone in Geotopia would instantly grow to their real age. Trying to impress Brooke with a gift, Sid accidentally removes one of the crystals. This causes the entire city to lose its magical power. Within moments, all of the Geotopians rapidly age to their true ages. Shangri Lama becomes furious, blaming Sid for destroying everything they had, even after losing their youth. Brooke convinces the other Geotopians that saving the entire world is far more important than staying young forever. Together with the herd, they collect every remaining crystal and place them inside the volcano. Buck believes the volcanic eruption will launch the giant magnetic crystal ball into space where it can pull the deadly asteroid away from Earth. Just as the plan is about to succeed, Gavin and the other dromaeosaurs attack once again. However, they soon realize that even their ability to fly will not save them if the asteroid destroys the entire planet. Buck convinces them that everyone must work together instead of fighting. Either it was written, he also reminds them that dinosaurs can live peacefully side by side. Just before the volcano erupts, a smaller meteor knocks away the largest crystal needed to complete the plan. Manny and Julian work together to place the crystal back into position. Julian proves his bravery and utter determination, finally earning Manny's respect and approval. The volcano erupts with tremendous force when Tichin launching the magnetic crystals high into space. The powerful magnetic field attracts the giant asteroid and changes its path, sending it safely away from Earth before it can cause another extinction. With the world saved, everyone begins the journey home. Sid sadly says goodbye to Brooke, believing they may never meet again. After the herd leaves, one small crystal falls into one of Geotopia's hot springs. The crystal restores the magical turtle water, causing all of the Geotopians, along with Granny, who stayed behind with them, to become young again. When the herd finally returns home, Manny and Ellie realize they have been too protective of Peaches. They encourage her to follow her dreams and enjoy her new life with Julian. Soon afterward, Peaches and Julian celebrate their wedding with all of their family and friends. During the celebration, Diego and Shira become heroes in the eyes of the younger animals who are no longer afraid of them. Just as the wedding is ending, Brooke suddenly appears, having regained her youth thanks to the restored crystal. She happily reunites with Sid, bringing his search for love to a joyful and heartwarming ending. Ice Age Collision Course 2016 assembled the most expansive voice ensemble in the franchise's 14-year history. Produced by Blue Sky Studios and 20th Century Fox Animation and directed by Michael Thurmeyer, the fifth installment in the Ice Age series retained the entire core voice cast that had been accumulating since the original 2002 film, while adding a roster of new performers drawn from television comedy, pop music, social media, professional sports, and astrophysics. The film stars Ray Romano, John Leguizamo, Queen Zamo, Denis Leary, Lopez, Simon Lepek, Josh Peck, Sean William Scott, KK, Pulsar, Wanda Site and Sykes reprising the roles alongside newcomers Adam Devine, Jesse J, Nick Offerman, Jesse Tyler Ferguson, Max Greenfield, Stephanie Beatriz, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Lily Singh, Michael Strahan, and Melissa Rauch. Below is a thorough examination of every significant casting decision in the film. Ray Romano as Manny Ray Romano returns as Manfred Manny, the woolly mammoth, the herd's leader and co founder. Romano has voiced the character across all five films and multiple short films since the franchise's 2002 debut. making Manny one of the longest running voice roles in animated cinema. In Collision Course, Manny's central dramatic challenge is parental. His daughter Peaches has grown up and is preparing to leave the herd with her fiancé Julian, forcing Manny to confront the specific anxiety of a father who must let go of the child he has spent his entire adult life protecting. Romano's specific vocal quality, the slightly worried, developed the script, warmly neurotic New York cadence that had made him famous through Everybody Loves Raymond, continued to serve Manny perfectly in the fifth installment. The mammoth's anxieties are not heroic in the conventional sense, but domestically relatable. The fear that his daughter is making a mistake, the inability to accept that she has grown beyond his protection, and the creeping awareness that his role in her life is fundamentally changing. Romano's ability to make these suburban parental anxieties feel genuine, even when expressed by a prehistoric elephant, remained the franchise's most reliable emotional instrument. John Leguizamo as Sid John Leguizamo returns as Sid the Ground Sloth, the herd's co-founder and its most consistently comic presence. Leguizamo's Sid has been the franchise's engine of physical comedy and verbal absurdity since the original film, and Collision Course gave the character a romantic subplot. His attraction to Brooke, a ground sloth voiced by Jesse J, that added a dimension of genuine emotional vulnerability to the character's customary comedic chaos. Leguizamo's approach to Sid's voice, the distinctive lisp, the slightly manic energy, the quality of cheerful obliviousness has remained remarkably consistent across 14 years of voice performance. The actor's improvisational instincts, they developed through a career that encompasses one man Broadway shows and dramatic film roles, gave the recording sessions a spontaneity that the animators could then translate into Sid's unpredictable physical comedy. The romantic dimension of Sid's storyline in Collision Course required Leguizamo to play genuine longing alongside the slapstick, a balance that the character's previous films had not demanded at this intensity. Dennis Leary returns as Diego the saber-toothed cat, the herd's co-leader, whose journey from solitary predator in the original film to devoted family member has been the franchise's most sustained character arc. In Collision Course, Diego and his mate Shira contemplate parenthood, a storyline that gave Leary's characteristically sharp, sardonic delivery a new dimension of vulnerability as the character confronted the prospect of fatherhood. Leary's vocal identity as Diego, the gravelly, Sa- slightly abrasive voice of a predator who has learned to care about others despite his instinct towards solitary independence, provided the franchise's tonal anchor. Where Romano's Manny worries about everything and Leguizamo's Sid is oblivious to danger, Leary's Diego occupies the middle ground of cautious competence, the character who sees threats clearly and responds to them with the focused aggression that his species demands. Simon Pegg returns as Buckminster Buck Wild, the one-eyed weasel and dinosaur hunter who first appeared in Ice Age: Dawn of the Dinosaurs 2009. Buck serves as the catalyst for the film's main adventure, returning from the underground dinosaur world to warn the herd about the approaching asteroid and leading them on the quest to prevent it. Pegg's specific brand of manic British energy, the combination of intellectual precision and physical absurdity that had made him a comedy icon through Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The Mission. Impossible franchise gave Buck a quality of inspired lunacy that distinguished him from every other character in the ensemble. The character's obsessive personality, his encyclopedic knowledge of dinosaurs and asteroids, and his tendency to speak to inanimate objects with complete sincerity all emerged from Pegg's improvisational instincts and his willingness to commit fully to the character's madness. Queen Latifah as Ellie and Jennifer Lopez as Shira. Queen Latifah returns as Ellie, Manny's wife and the mammoth matriarch, whose calm authority balances Manny's anxieties. Latifa's warm, grounded vocal presence gave Ellie the quality of a partner who understands her husband's fears but refuses to let them govern the family's decisions. Her scenes with Romano established the central parental dynamic that the Peaches Julian storyline needed to play against. Jennifer Lopez returns as Shira, Diego's mate, and the former pirate Sabretooth from Continental Drift. Lopez gave Shira a quality of confident independence that complemented Larry's Diego. A partnership of equals whose contemplation of parenthood reflected genuine mutual respect rather than the conventional romantic hierarchy. Kike Palmer as Peaches. Kike Palmer returns as Peaches, Manny, and Ellie's now grown daughter. Palmer, who had taken over the role from the younger Peaches performer in Continental Drift, voiced the character through her transition from teenager to young adult. Developed the script and later was rewritten, giving the mammoth's coming of age arc a vocal continuity that grounded the emotional stakes. The character's engagement to Julian placed Palmer at the center of the film's familial conflict, and her ability to play Peaches' genuine love for Julian alongside her equally genuine love for her overprotective father gave the film its most relatable dramatic tension. Adam Duffy as Julian. Adam Devine voices Julian, Peaches' fiance, and the mammoth whose easygoing personality clashes magnificently with Manny's protective intensity. Devine, known for his comedic work in Pitch Perfect, Workaholics, and Modern Family, brought a specific quality of endearing obliviousness to Julian that made the character both genuinely likable and understandably alarming to a prospective father in law. Julian's persistent optimism, his inability to recognize that Manny is testing him, and his guileless affection for Peaches gave Devine's performance a sweetness that balanced the character's comedy. The dynamic between Devine's Julian and Romano's Manny was one of the film's most consistently entertaining relationships. A comedy of generation miscommunication in which the older man's protective anxiety met the younger man's blithe confidence and produced genuine friction. Devine's willingness to play Julian as genuinely well meaning rather than merely clueless gave the character the depth to sustain the comedy across the film's run time. Jessie J as Brooke, British pop star. Jessie J voices Brooke, a ground sloth who becomes Sid's love interest and lives in the underground Geotopia paradise. The casting of a pop star known for her vocal power and stage presence as Sid's romantic counterpart was a deliberate choice that gave the character an immediate glamour and musicality. Jessie J brought a warmth and enthusiasm to Brooke that made her attraction to Sid, the franchise's most consistently hapless character, feel genuinely sweet rather than implausible. Brooke is a member of a hidden community called Geotopia, where the residents have been kept eternally young by the power of a cosmic crystal. Later, it's rewritten. Jessie J's naturally vibrant vocal energy communicated both the character's youthful exuberance and the underlying poignancy of a creature who has been artificially preserved from the aging that defines natural life. Nick Offerman as Gavin. Nick Offerman voices Gavin, a Dromaeosaurus, and the leader of a trio of flying dinosaurs who initially serve as antagonists before eventually allying with the herd. Offerman, whose indelible portrayal of Ron Swanson in Parks and Recreation had established him as one of American comedy's most distinctive voices, brought his characteristic combination of gruff authority and concealed warmth to the father dinosaur. Gavin's arc, from antagonist motivated by territorial aggression to reluctant ally who eventually helps the herd save the world, required Offerman to navigate between menace and redemption, and his naturally authoritative voice gave the character's transformation a credibility that a less distinctive performer might not have achieved. The dynamic between Gavin and his children, Gertie and Roger, gave Offerman the opportunity to play a different kind of father than Manny, one whose protectiveness is expressed through aggression rather than anxiety. Stephanie Beatriz as Gertie and Max Greenfield as Roger. Stephanie Beatriz voices Gertie, Gavin's daughter, and a fierce young Dromaeosaurus. Beatriz, who would later achieve global recognition through Encanto 2021, brought a quality of fierce determination and youthful aggression to Gertie that made the character genuinely intimidating despite her youth. Max Greenfield voices Roger, Gavin's son, who gradually befriends Buck during their adventures. Greenfield, known for his role as Smith in New Girl, brought a quality of nerdy enthusiasm that contrasted with his father's and sister's ferocity, making Roger the dinosaur family's most sympathetic member. Jesse Tyler Ferguson as Shangri Lama. Jace Tyler Ferguson voices Shangri Lama, the spiritual leader of Geotopia who has maintained eternal youth through the power of the cosmic crystal. Ferguson, beloved as Mitchell Pritchett in Modern Family, gave the character a quality of serene self importance and theatrical spirituality that made the Lama one of the film's most entertainingly absurd figures. The character's combination of genuine wisdom and ridiculous vanity required a performer capable of holding both qualities simultaneously, and Ferguson's comedic precision made that balance feel natural. Neil deGrasse Tyson as Neil deBuck Weasel, the casting of astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson as Neil deBuck Weasel, a weasel version of himself who appears in Buck's imagination, was the film's most self-consciously clever piece of meta casting. Tyson's distinctive voice and his public persona as science's most charismatic popularizer gave the character an immediate recognizability that made the joke land without explanation. The character's appearance in Buck's imagined scientific explanations of the asteroid threat placed Tyson in his natural role, explaining cosmic phenomena to an audience that needs the help, while the visual presentation added a layer of absurdist comedy. Wanda Sykes as Granny, Sean William Scott as Crash, and Josh Peck as Eddie Wanda Sykes returns as Granny. Sid irascible grandmother whose abrasive personality and surprising physical resilience had made her one of the franchise's most popular additions since her introduction in Continental Drift. Sykes' razor sharp comedic delivery gave Granny a quality of gleeful hostility that distinguished her from every other character in the ensemble. Sean William Scott and Josh Peck return as Crash and Eddie, the Opossum Brothers, whose physical comedy and reckless energy provided the franchise with its most consistently juvenile and reliably entertaining comic partnership. Lily Singh, Michael Strahan, and Melissa Rauch, YouTube star Lily Singh, voices Bubbles and Misty characters in Geotopia. Michael Strahan, the former NFL star and television host, Steady, another Geotopia resident. Melissa Rauch, known for her role as Bernadette in The Big Bang Theory, voices Francine. These casting choices reflected the production's strategy of recruiting recognizable voices from across the entertainment spectrum. Digital media, professional sports, and sitcom television to populate the Geotopia community with an eclectic range of vocal personality. Chris Wedge as Scrat. Chris Wedge returns as Scrat, the saber-toothed squirrel whose pursuit of his acorn provides the film's parallel narrative. And in this installment, its inciting incident as Scrat's cosmic misadventures accidentally send an asteroid on a collision course with Earth. Wedge, who co directed the original Ice Age and has voiced Scrat across all five films, provided the wordless vocal performance that had become the franchise's most universally beloved comic element. Scratch scenes require no dialogue, no exposition, and no context beyond the eternal Sisyphean struggle between a squirrel and an acorn. And Wedge's squeaks, growls, and desperate vocalizations communicated the character's comic tragedy with the precision of silent film comedy. The ensemble as a whole taken together the voice cast of Ice Age. Collis- Collision Course represents the fullest expression of the franchise's casting philosophy. At Quarter, it was rewritten a core ensemble of performers whose 15-year commitment to their characters had created genuine vocal identities that audience recognized and trusted, surrounded by a rotating cast of new additions whose specific talents enriched each installment's comic and dramatic texture. The combination of Romano's parental anxiety, Leguizamo's physical absurdity, Larry's predatory cool Peg's manic intelligence, and the diverse energies of the new cast created an ensemble whose collective warmth, whatever the critics' reservation about the film's screenplay, was genuine and unmistakable. Production development, mining the original film's Easter eggs, the development of Ice Age. Collision Course was rooted in one of the most celebrated visual gags from the franchise's 14-year-old origin. The concept of collision course was deeply rooted in a scene from the first film where Manny, C. Diego, and Roshan are walking through an ice cave and they spot a spaceship that's encased in ice, an item that inspired this film in the series. As with the third film, which was also inspired by the ice cave scene in which the herd comes across a dinosaur that was encased in ice, the team went back to the first film to search for a possible inspiration for this next installment. The creative strategy of returning to the original film's ice cave sequence, a brief moment in which the characters pass a series of frozen artifacts, including a spaceship and a dinosaur, as a source of franchise expansion was both clever and potentially limiting. The dinosaur had given the franchise its third installment, Dawn of the Dinosaurs 2009. The spaceship now gave it its fifth. This method of franchise generation, mining background details from the 2002 original for sequel premises, had a pleasing symmetry, but it also raised the question of how many installments could be sustainably extracted from a single scene's worth of visual gags. The film was originally scheduled for release on July 15, 2016. However, it was delayed to July 22 to avoid competition with the Ghostbusters reboot that was also scheduled for July 15. This strategic retreat from the Ghostbusters release date was a commercially rational decision that reflected the franchise's awareness of its competitive position. While Ice Age commanded a substantial global audience, particularly in Latin America and Europe, a direct collision with one of the summer's most anticipated and most marketed releases was a risk the studio was unwilling to take. Pre production, character design, and animation pipeline. The character design and animation process at Blue Sky Studios followed an elaborate multi stage pipeline that reflected the studio's distinctive approach to CGI animated production. The characters were first hand drawn on animation software, complete with color and animated clips of the characters doing specific actions. They were then sent to be hand sculpted with clay and ultimately scanned into CGI software and animated around the model. This three-stage process: digital concept art, physical clay sculpture, and then CGI modeling from the scanned sculpture was one of Blue Sky's most distinctive creative practices, distinguishing their workflow from studios like Pixar and DreamWorks that relied more exclusively on digital design pipelines. The clay sculpting stage, which inserted a genuinely physical, tactile creative process between the initial concept and the final digital model, gave the characters a quality of three dimensional solidity that purely digital design sometimes lacks. The animators were working not from abstract digital blueprints, but from physical objects they could hold, rotate, and examine from every angle before committing to the digital model. The Figaro's aria challenge, one of the most technically ambitious sequences in the film's production, was established early and persisted as a creative challenge throughout the entire production timeline. The Figaro's aria sequences, which involved Buck saving an egg from a trio of Romeo saws, proved to be one of the most challenging sequences for Blue Sky Studios animators, as it involved a continuous, uninterrupted shot that ran for around 2 minutes. It was one of the first scenes put in production, but also one of the last to exit production due to its time consuming and difficult structure, as the team would only be able to produce 3 or 4 seconds of footage a week. The ambition of creating a 2 minute continuous shot in a CGI animated film with no cuts, no transitions, and no opportunity to reset the virtual camera was extraordinary. 3 or 4 seconds of footage per week meant that the sequence required approximately 30 to 40 weeks of continuous production effort from the animation team assigned to it. The decision to put this sequence into production first and allow it to develop alongside the rest of the film reflects both the sequence's creative importance and the filmmaker's awareness that it would require an extended incubation period. The choice to set showcase sequence to Gioacchino Rossini's Largo al Factotum, the famous Barber of Seville aria, gave it a musical structure that the animation could play against, using the opera's dynamic rhythm as a choreographic framework for Buck's acrobatic pursuit. Simon Pegg sang a rendition of Figaro for the sequence, Buck's performance, giving Buck's performance a vocal dimension that integrated the character's energy with the musical accompaniment voice recording. The cross country commute, the logistics of the voice recording process for collision course, presented specific challenges rooted in the geographic separation between the studio and its cast. The recording sessions took place in Los Angeles, California, since most of the actors live there while the studio is based in New York. Director Michael Thurmeyer and co-director Galen Tan Chu would take turns traveling to LA to head the recording sessions. The bi-coastal nature of the production. Animation in Blue Skies Greenwich, Connecticut's the voice recording in Los Angeles meant that the directors had to maintain creative oversight across two production centers simultaneously. The system of alternating travel. Thermier and Chu taking turns flying to Los Angeles for recording sessions reflected a practical solution to the logistical challenge of having creative leadership present at both the animation facility and the voice recording sessions. Jesse Tyler Ferguson was offered the role of Shangri Lama after the producer saw his performance in Modern Family. It is his first time working in an animated film. Rewritten. Ferguson blew out his voice on the first day of the recording session. He then took a few days off and came back later to finish his part. He admitted that he struggled the first time he heard his voice come out of his character's mouth. As a result, he decided to stop watching interviews of himself on television because he found them to be too weird. Ferguson's experience, the blown out voice, the discomfort at hearing his own voice emerge from an animated character, the decision to stop watching his own television interviews because the disconnect between his voice and his visual self image was disturbing, is one of the more candid accounts of first time voice acting in film's production history. For an actor accustomed to the feedback loop of physical performance, seeing his own face and body communicate the emotional content alongside his voice. The experience of voice only acting, where the vocal performance is the entire contribution, was genuinely disorienting. Filming, voice recording, and animation production, the returning core cast, the returning voice cast, represented one of the longest lasting ensemble commitments in animated franchise history. Ray Romano, Manny, John Leguizamo, Sid, and Denis Leary Diego had been voicing their characters since 2002, a 14-year period of continuous franchise involvement that had given each performer an intimate understanding of their character's vocal identity and dramatic range. The consistency of the core cast, the same three performers across five films gave the franchise a quality of vocal authenticity that recasting would have disrupted. Audiences who had grown up with these voices associated them inseparably with the characters, and the specific chemical combination of Romano's anxious warmth, Leguizamo's manic energy, developed the script. Either sardonic could have become the franchise's defining sonic identity. Queen Latifah, Ellie, Jennifer Lopez, Simon Pegg, Buck, Keek, Palmer, Peaches. Sean William Scott, Crash, and Josh Peck Eddy all returned from previous installments, creating an ensemble of returning performers that numbered 11 before a single new character was cast. The new additions, the new voice cast for Collision Course was drawn from an unusually diverse range of entertainment sectors. Adam Devine brought television comedy energy to Julian. Nick Offerman, Max Greenfield, and Stephanie Beatriz, all drawn from critically acclaimed television comedies, populated the Dromaeosaurus families with distinctive vocal personalities. Jesse J brought pop star energy to Brooke. Jesse Tyler Ferguson brought modern family pedigree to Shangri Lama. Neil deGrasse Tyson brought genuine scientific celebrity to the comedic role of Neil deBuck Weasel. Lily Singh brought digital native YouTube fame to Bubbles and Misty. Michael Strahan brought sports celebrity crossover appeal to Teddy. And Melissa Rauch brought Big Bang Theory recognition to Francine. The breadth of this casting, television comedians, pop stars, astrophysicists, YouTubers, sports figures, reflected the franchise's awareness that its audience extended across demographic lines that conventional casting could not entirely cover. It it was rewritten. Each new performer brought their own fan base and their own cultural context, and the aggregate effect was a production that could market itself to virtually every demographic segment simultaneously. Chris Wedge returned as Scrat, the saber-toothed squirrel whose wordless performances had been the franchise's most consistently beloved element since the original film. Wedge, who had co directed the first Ice Age, provided the purely vocal, non verbal performance that gave Scrat his distinctive sound, a contribution that was both technically precise and creatively generous, as the character's appeal rested entirely on the expressiveness of his vocalizations rather than on any scripted dialogue. Post it and post production editing, James M. Palumbo, the editing of Ice Age. Collision Course was handled by James M. Palumbo, whose challenge was to maintain coherent pacing across a film whose multiple storylines, Manny's parental anxiety, Sid's romantic quest, Diego and Shira's parenthood considerations, dwarfed the script, and later it was Regin, the Dromaeosaurus family's evolution, and the Scrat cosmic misadventure all competed for screen time within a 95-minute runtime. The 95-minute runtime was compact by franchise standards and reflected editorial discipline in managing the enormous ensemble's competing demands. Each storyline needed enough space to develop meaningfully while also contributing to the overall forward momentum of the asteroid avoidance plot. Palumbo's editorial decisions about how to intercut between these threads, maintaining the energy of the adventure while allowing the emotional beats their necessary breathing room, shaped the film's pacing and ultimately determined how effectively each storyline landed with audiences. Visual effects and environmental design, the post production visual effects work expanded the franchise's visual world significantly from previous installments. Developed the script, the introduction of Geotopia, the crystal powered utopian community inside the asteroid, required the creation of an entirely new visual environment with distinct lighting, color palette, and atmospheric qualities. The contrast between the familiar natural environments of the franchise's established world and the crystalline, otherworldly beauty of Geotopia gave the visual effects team the opportunity to demonstrate Blue Sky's capabilities across two radically different aesthetic registers. The asteroid asteroid effects, including the cosmic sequences featuring Scrat's misadventures in space, required effects work that extended the franchise's visual vocabulary into genuinely new territory. The physics of space, the rendering of celestial objects, and the depiction of the asteroid's approach to Earth all demanded effects, approaches that the franchise's previous Earthbound stories had not required. Music John Debney and the film score was composed by John Debney, replacing John Powell due to his unavailability. However, some of Powell's themes from prior films were used, along with David Newman's themes from the first film. Debney's appointment, necessitated by John Powell's scheduling conflicts, placed a highly experienced and versatile composer in a position that required both creative originality and respectful continuity with established musical themes. Powell's score for the third and fourth films had built substantially on David Newman's original themes from the 2002 Ice Age, creating a musical through line that connected the franchise's entries. Debney's challenge was to maintain that through line while also introducing new material for the film's new characters and environments. The decision to retain Powell's and Newman's established themes alongside Debney's new compositions gave the score a layered only a musicality history that rewarded longtime fans of the franchise while remaining accessible to new viewers. The themes associated with Manny, Diego, and the broader herd had accumulated genuine emotional power across four previous films, and Dabney's integration of these themes into his own compositional voice was the score's most significant creative achievement. Songs and musical performances. Jesse J performed a song dubbed My Superstar with Blaze and Will as a contribution to the film. Other songs in the film include Simon Pegg's rendition of Largo al Factotum. Jesse J's My Superstar, written and performed by the British pop star who voiced Brooke, gave the film a contemporary pop song that connected the music to the romantic subplot involving Sid and Brooke. The song's placement within the film and its association with the film's love story gave it a narrative function that elevated it above a mere marketing tie in. Peg's Figaro rendition, performed as part of the Buck action sequence that was the film's most technically ambitious single scene, was the score's most dramatically integrated musical moment, a performance by a character rather than a piece of non diegetic underscore. Release Theatrical release and marketing an extended sneak peek of the movie in the form of a short film called Cosmic Scratastrophe was attached to theatrical showings of Blue Sky Studios' The Peanuts movie on November 6, 2015. The teaser poster of the film was revealed on November 6, 2015, with the words Bring Scrat Home spoofing The Martian. The Bring Scrat Home tagline, a direct parody of the Martian's Bring Him Home marketing campaign, was a characteristically playful piece of franchise marketing that communicated the film's cosmic setting while demonstrating the self aware humor that had kept the franchise's marketing fresh across five films. The Cosmic Scrat catastrophe shot attached to the Peanuts movie provided audiences with a taste of the new film's expanded scope while functioning as a standalone piece of entertainment. A promotional poster shown in June 2015 at the Licensing Expo revealed the film's full title, Ice Age Collision Course. Ice Age Collision Course premiered at the Sydney Film Festival on June 19, 2016, and was theatrically released in the United States on July 22 by 20th Century Fox. The Sydney Film Festival premiere, approximately 5 weeks before the North American release, gave the film its first public screening in a market where the franchise had traditionally performed well. The July 22 release date positioned the film in the second half of the summer blockbuster season, competing directly with Star Trek Beyond and following the enormous success of The Secret Life of Pets and Finding Dory in the family animation space, home media Ice Age. Collision Course was released by 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment on DVD, Blu-ray, Blu-ray 3D, 4K, Blu-ray, and digital download on October 11, 2016. Special features include a new short film titled Scrat, m- Spaced Out, which is primarily made up of scratch scenes from the film with a few unique scenes at the end. The October 11 home media release, approximately 3 months after the theatrical opening, gave the film a home entertainment window during the autumn period when family entertainment purchases typically increase in anticipation of the holiday season. The Scrat spaced out short film as a bonus feature gave the home media release genuine added value, providing fans with additional Scrat content that extended the theatrical experience. The five format simultaneous release DVD, Blu ray, Blu ray 3D, 4K Blu ray, and digital download reflected the distribution era's approach of capturing consumer demand across every available format. The 4K Blu ray release was particularly appropriate for an animated film whose visual effects work and environmental design rewarded high resolution presentation. Ice Age. Collision Course World was released on the Walt Disney Company's streaming service Plus on July 3, 2020. The Disney Plus availability following Disney's acquisition of 21st Century Fox and its entertainment assets gave the film access to the streaming platform's enormous global subscriber base, extending its audience reach significantly beyond the theatrical and home media audience that had driven its initial commercial performance. Reception box office performance, the commercial performance of Ice Age. Collision Course told two dramatically different stories depending on which market one examined. Domestically, the film was a genuine commercial disappointment. Internationally, it was a solid performer that kept the franchise commercially viable. Ice Age. Collision Course just grossed 64 million in America and $344 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $408.5 million against a production budget of $105 million. In terms of total earnings, infartis intercifis artistitis and cities in the daughter 266 million fins datis 6,000 pudan Basil Basi 5 pin Tazin DFE Tata 7 Zacidas in Putin. The domestic performance was unambiguously disappointing. In the United States and Canada, Ice Age. Collision Course opened on July 22, 2016, alongside Star Trek Beyond and Lights Out, and was projected to gross $35 million from 3,997 theaters in its opening weekend. It made $850,000 from Thursday night previews and $7.8 million on its first day. It had a $21 million debut in its opening weekend, finishing fourth at the box office. The film finished its theatrical run with a domestic gross of $64 million. Produced on a budget of $105 million, the film became the lowest grossing film of the franchise as well as Blue Sky's lowest grossing film, causing the film to become a box office bomb in the North American market. This was attributed due to franchise fatigue and poor marketing, as well as facing competition from The Secret Life of Pets and the former during its crowded summer release. The first seed rewritten, the $21 million opening $10 million below the low end of projections, was a clear signal that the American audience had lost interest in the franchise. Finishing fourth at the box office on opening weekend behind Star Trek Beyond, The Secret Life of Pets in its third weekend, and Lights Out, a horror film with a fraction of the budget, was a humiliating commercial result for a franchise whose previous installments had consistently opened to $40 million or more domestically. The international story was considerably stronger, though even there, the numbers reflected decline from the franchise's peak. The film began its international theatrical run 2 weeks prior to its North American release, $18 million from seven markets on about 5,286 screens. In its second weekend, it added $32.2 million dollars from 25 countries. By its third weekend, after grossing another $53.5 million dollars from 15, 132 screens in a total 51 markets, it finally topped the international box office and became the biggest grosser of the weekend. The film's Latin American performance was particularly strong. It recorded the biggest opening of all time for Fox in Argentina, got 3.77 million, Central Colombia 2.18 million, Central America million, got 620,600 million. The second biggest in Mexico, 8.4 behind Ice Age, Continental Drift, and the biggest opening among the series in Brazil, Duck 4.5 million. And these Latin American records reflected the specific cultural resonance that the franchise had built in this region across 14 years, a relationship between the characters and the audience that was significantly stronger than the franchise's American connection. In China, it opened on Tuesday, August 23, alongside Jason Bourne and delivered a 6-day opening of $42.7 million dollars and a Friday to Sunday debut of $23.1 million. Dollars. The debut makes it the top non local animated opening in the country that year and is also the franchise's best debut. China's $66 million dollars total, making it the film's largest single territory, surpassing even North America, underscored the degree to which the franchise's commercial center of gravity had shifted from the United States to the international marketplace. The worldwide total of $408. 5 million against a $105 million dollar production budget was on paper a commercially viable result, approximately 4 times the production investment. But when marketing and distribution costs were factored in, and when the domestic performance was viewed as an indicator of the franchise's American brand health, the result was considerably less reassuring. The film's value as a franchise asset lay almost entirely in its international appeal, and the question of whether that international appeal was sufficient to sustain further installments would not be definitively answered for another 8 years. Critical response aggregate scores and critical consensus, the critical reception to Ice Age. Collision cost was the most negative in the franchise's history, a response that confirmed the creative exhaustion that many observers had been diagnosing since the third or fourth installment. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 18% of 120 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 4.110. Website's consensus reads unoriginal and unfunny Ice Age. Collision Course offers further proof that not even the healthiest box office receipts can keep a franchise from slouching toward creative extinction. Rotten Tomatoes also ranks Collision Course as the lowest rated of the Ice Age films. Metacritic, which uses a weighted average, assigned the film a score of 34 out of 100 based on 27 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an AD plus to F scale. The 18% Rotten Tomatoes score was a devastating result, placing the film in the company of the year's most poorly received studio releases. The Rotten Tomatoes consensus is not even the healthiest box office receipts can keep a franchise from slouching toward creative extinction, was simultaneously a pun on the franchise's prehistoric setting and a genuine critical diagnosis of thermal creative decline. The word extinction carried a double meaning that the critics clearly intended. The franchise's creative life had, in their collective assessment, run its course. The Metacritic score of 34, indicating generally unfavorable reviews, was among the lowest ever awarded to a major studio animated film. The gap between this professional critical assessment and the cinema score B.Ts reflected a pronounced divergence between the priorities of professional critics who valued originality, narrative coherence, and creative ambition, and those of the family audiences who attended the film, who valued entertainment value, character familiarity, The rewritten and the shared experience of watching a known franchise with their children. Selected critical reviews Katie Walsh of the Los Angeles Times gave the film a negative review, writing that Collision Course is simply a perfunctory, watered down entry in the series that feels like it should have been released on home video. Walsh's observation that the film feels like it should have been released on home video was among the most cutting assessments in the critical record. The suggestion that the production's quality was insufficient for theatrical exhibition and should have been relegated to the direct to video market. For a franchise that had grossed over $2.8 billion worldwide across its first four installments, the suggestion that it had declined to home video quality was a devastating verdict. Peter Travers of Rolling Stone gave the film 1 out of 4 stars, saying the fifth entry in the Ice Age series is a loud, lazy, laugh stuffed cash grab that cynically exploits its target audience. I use the term advisedly by serving them scraps and calling it yummy. Travers' review was among the most viscerally hostile in the film's critical record. The language of cynical exploitation, cash grab, serving them scraps, characterized the film not as a creative failure but as a commercial betrayal, a franchise that was deliberately providing inferior product because it knew its audience would attend regardless. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian gave it 5 stars, writing, "The time to call it a day probably came way back in the Jurassic period of 2002 when the credits were rolling on the perfectly decent first film. Now it's running on empty." Bradshaw's suggestion that the franchise should have ended after its first installment, dismissing 14 years and 4 sequels with a single parenthetical perfectly decent, was the most comprehensive rejection of the franchise's entire extension. The Washington Post's Stephanie Mary wrote, "Lazy, scattershot, and excruciatingly unfunny. The movie is a hazard to the very young who might come away with the erroneous impression that movies don't get any better than this." Mary's review went beyond creative criticism to express genuine concern about the film's impact on young viewers' aesthetic standards. The worry that children exposed to formulaic, uninspired filmmaking might internalize the belief that this was the best entertainment could offer Pazi descent. Not all reviews were negative, and the minority positive assessments identified genuine qualities that the overwhelmingly negative critical consensus had largely ignored. Owen Gleiberman of Variety gave the film a positive review, saying that the long running series returns to form with an infectious chatterbox comedy about the end of the world as we know it. Gleiberman's review was the most prominent positive assessment, arguing that the film's manic energy and verbal comedy represented a genuine return to the franchise's strengths rather than the continued decline that most critics perceived. Ed Potton of the Times gave it 4 5 stars, calling it a rare case of the classic sequel formula. Same again, but bigger and louder, being rather effective. Potton's 4 star rating was the highest in any major publication, and his argument that the franchise's formula, when applied with sufficient energy, remained entertaining was a defense of the franchise's fundamental appeal as uncomplicated family entertainment. Stuff's Kate Robertson wrote, "The familiar voices of Ray Romano, Jesse Tyler Ferguson, and Max Greenfield make for some distinct and headstrong characters. A winning formula, if there ever was one." Robertson's positive assessment identified the voice cast as the film's most reliable asset. The quality of vocal performance that elevated even the most formulaic material through sheer personality and craft. The franchise's future and legacy, the film's mixed commercial results. Domestic disappointment combined with international success and overwhelmingly negative critical reception raised serious questions about whether the franchise would continue. On the possibility of a sequel, Co-director Galen Tichu stated in June 2016 that there were some ideas for the sixth installment. The cautious language, some ideas rather than active development, reflected the uncertainty that the film's polarized reception had created. The franchise continuation was further complicated by institutional changes at 20th Century Fox. Disney's acquisition of Fox's entertainment assets in 2019 and the subsequent closure of Blue Sky Studios in 2021 appeared to end the franchise definitively. However, in November 2024, a sixth film, Ice Age, Boiling Point, was confirmed to be in the works with Romano, Leguizamo, Latifa, Leary, and Pegg set to reprise their voice roles, scheduled for a February 2027 release. The confirmation of Ice Age, Boiling Point, arriving 8 years after Collision Course and 5 years after Blue Sky's closure, demonstrated that the franchise's international commercial value and cultural recognition had survived both creative criticism and institutional disruption. The decision to continue the franchise under Disney's stewardship without Blue Sky's involvement represents a new chapter in a story that Collision Course had appeared to conclude. Whether the sixth film can reverse the creative decline that the fifth film's critical reception identified, or whether it will confirm the creative extinction that the Rotten Tomatoes consensus diagnosed, remains the central question that Collision Course's legacy poses to the franchise's future. There are times when I wonder about my commitment to see all of the animated films of the year. Watching the latest Ice Age film, Ice Age Collision Course, is one of those moments. It was rewritten. It's kind of crazy because I just saw it this morning, but I'm having a hard time remembering anything that happened just hours later. This is a completely lame animated film. That is, a completely will be the end of the series. The core story is Scrat, the squirrel who is always looking for his acorn, activates an asteroid in space that is headed towards Earth. Manny and company see the asteroid coming and follow Buck to a prophesied place that will keep them safe. Along the way, you have lots of attempts at humor, sheer randomness, and Manny dealing with his soon to be son in law. If that sounds boring, it kind of is. There are moments where the randomness can be interesting, but other times it's just frustrating. Characters will wander off just for a joke that isn't funny or pay off well. And some stuff is weird more than it is funny. Like Neil deGrasse Tyson appears inside Buck's brain explaining the science of the asteroid. There is, of course, a lot of scatological humor, but most of the jokes are more characters complaining about each other. Plus, you have the specter of the world coming to the end, which gives the whole enterprise a rather downbeat feeling. They end up meeting this Shangri Lama who is doing yoga in an asteroid that grants a fountain of youth. Then they had to take the crystals and make a pit that would then repel the asteroid. This is as convoluted as it sounds, and it never worked in creating tension or empathy for the characters. I frankly just didn't care. They also keep zipping back to Scrat, and his silly antics can be amusing, but at this point, it's a very tired gag. A few of the characters land jokes, but mostly it's complaining more than actual jokes. Rewritten, the 3D also looked terrible. Instead of immersing me in the experience, it kept shoving things in my face. The best joke of the screening was when Scrat turns a planet into Mars, and a little boy behind me said, "That's not how it happened, mommy." That made me laugh. The threat of extinction has always been a theme in the Ice Age films, but there's little real danger of that in this fifth installment of the hugely successful animated franchise. Overpopulated with barely justified subplots and new additions to its family of goofy prehistoric animals, Collision Course is a colorful 3D romp that's heavy on slapstick and cozy family comedy, but light on real laughs and affecting drama. Thurmeyer just about manages to pull all the slapstick comedy rewritten parent child drama and science themed adventure together into a roughly coherent whole. After its June 19 premiere at the Sydney Film Festival, The Blue Sky 20th Century Fox sequel hits most major territories in the month before it arrives in the US on July 22, and it will be the international market where it should generate most of its box office action. But with competition coming from Illumination, Universal's The Secret Life of Pets, and Pixar Disney's Finding Dory, matching the 715.9 meters international haul and 161.3 meters domestic take of 2012's Ice Age. Continental Drift, the franchise's second biggest worldwide earner, could be a challenge. Scripted by Michael Wilson, co-writer of the 2002 franchise Begetter, Michael Berg, co-writer of the original and the series' two previous chapters, and Yoni Brenner, one of the writers on third outing Ice Age. Dawn of Dinosaurs. Collision Course sets good-natured woolly mammoth Manny, voiced by series regular Ray Romano, and his motley herd on a quest to divert a giant asteroid which is headed for their part of the frosty world. The family dynamics have Manny and Ellie, again voiced by Queen Latifah, fretting about daughter Peaches, Keek Palmer, who is planning to leave home with hubby to be Julian. A new character given voice by Pitch Perfect's Adam Devine, and Julian trying to ingratiate himself with Manny. Meanwhile, Sid the Sloth, John Leguizamo, is on his own quest for a girlfriend, and saber-toothed tigers Diego, Denis Leary, and Shira Jennifer Lopez are thinking about starting a family. As usual, there's some enjoyable pratfall comedy with Scrat and his acorn to punctuate the story. This time, the determined squirrel rat is on a spaceship journey that vaguely refers back to the first film and connects. Later, it was rewritten, sort of, with the main plot. And other characters making welcome returns include Loopy Weasel Buck, back from the third chapter, with Simon Pegg again voicing Sid's cantankerous granny, Wanda Sykes, and Manic Possums Crash and Eddie, Josh Peck, and Sean William Scott. Other new characters included a quarrelsome family of dino birds, with the macho dad voiced by Parks and Recreation's Nick Offerman, who emerged from a subterranean lost world intent on foiling the asteroid diversion scheme and the new agey inhabitants of a giant geode called rather cheekily Geotopia. Among the crystal dwellers is a bubbly female sloth voiced by British pop singer Jessie J, who also belts out a song for the film's soundtrack. Continental Drift's Michael Thameyer is back to direct, with regular franchise supervising animator Gillian Tan Chu as co-director, and he just about manages to pull all the slapstick comedy. Parent-child drama and science-themed adventure. Yet another new character is based on TV-friendly American astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson, together into a roughly coherent whole. Mostly missing though is the kind of humor that might have kept adults as well as kids interested, and a sense of dramatic peril that in previous Ice Age installments has stirred up a few moments of real emotion. Co-director Galen Tanchu Production Company's Blue Sky Studios, 20th Century Fox Animation Worldwide Distribution, 20th Century Fox producers, Lori Fortit executive producers, Chris Wedge, Carlos Saldanha screenplay. Michael Wilson, Mike Berg, Yoni Brenny Brinazik, John Debney editor, James Palumbo art director, Michael Knapp website, iceagemovies.com. Main voice cast: Raromas, Denis Leary, John Leguizamo, Queen Latifah, Sean William Scott, Josh Peck, Simon Pegg, Kike Palmer, Wanda Sykes, Jennifer Lopez, Stephanie Beatriz, Adam Devine, Jesse Tyler Ferguson, Max Greenfield, Jesse J, Nick Offerman, Melissa Rauch, Michael Strahan, Neil deGrasse Tyson. The first in the long running series was decent enough, but the threatened band of ancient beasts are fast losing their appeal. This is the fifth in the animated movie franchise about ancient beasts lumbering onward and battling extinction. The time has come to call it a day. Actually, the time to call it a day probably came way back in the Jurassic period of 2002 when the credits were rolling on the perfectly decent first film. Now it's running on empty. We're back with Sid the Sloth, John Leguizamo, Diego the Saber-Toothed Tiger, Denis Leary, and Manny the Woolly Mammoth, Ray Romano. Sid has romantic crises, and Miss Minnie's worries what about his daughter's impending marriage to someone he doesn't like much. The nerdy little squirrel Scrat, whose unending quest for an acorn always provides a silent comedy parallel plot, and who is now the least insufferable thing about these films, finds himself accidentally whooshed away into space in an alien ship, and he triggers a later meteor shower that may wipe out all the comedy talking animals on Earth. If only this could provide some small screen entertainment for bored kids on a rainy day. But really, enough. The Ice Age films are generally good at being good enough, but the fifth installment, Ice Age Collision Course, barely rises to that low bar. The filmmakers, and later it was rewritten. The filmmakers behind this franchise are at convincing seeing parents to bring their kids to see their movies than they are at actually making these movies any good. The lazy sitcom side of ICAG Collision Course story finds Manny the Woolly Mammoth, voiced by Ray Romano. Forgetting his wedding anniversary with Ellie, a barely there Queen Latifah, and disapproving of his daughter Peaches Ki Palma fiance, the admittedly obnoxious Julian Adam Devine. The more interesting Armageddon inspired action side finds that half rat, half squirrel Scrat's pursuit of his acorn has taken him to other meteor hurtling destructively towards Earth and Buckle Simpeg attempt to stop it. Ice AG collision course is harmless, and when it focuses on Scrat's determined obsession with that acorn, it cause rewritten, it's occasionally amusing. A film that might mesmerize the under 10 crowd but will most likely fail to keep their parents distracted. Sure, the characters are sort of cute, the voices are silly, and later it was rewritten and everyone learns the lessons they need, learn about friendship and family, etc. But I think kids are smarter than this movie, and way too much of the comedy here is uninspired is written. With most of the characters from the first four films plus a few new ones, there's barely time to adequately explore anyone's conflicts, leaving the series' two original central characters, Romano's Manny and especially Denis Leary's saber-tooth Diego, relegated to the background. On the plus side, the movie looks fantastic. The 3D has decent depth, and Peg's one eyed weasel is such a deranged scene stealer that I wouldn't mind seeing this character in a film of his own. I also liked Neil deGrasse Tyson as Neil the Buck Weasel, mixing in a few facts about our solar system with all the nonsense. Ice AG Collision Course will satisfy its young fan base and is bound to make a ton of money. But at this point, the series is less an artistic pursuit and more a business deal. If you've already taken the torch to Finding Dory and Secret Life of Patsy, you may be stuck. So keep your expectations low. The Mammoth animated franchise, Ice Age, returns with our Sub Zero heroes on a whole new exciting adventure. In 2016, fans around the world will enjoy an unprecedented fifth movie, Ice Age Collision Course, as our favorite herd set out to save their world from disaster while encountering new lands, new colors, new action, and a whole new cast of outrageous and delightful characters. This global phenomenon has earned over $2.8 billion worldwide at the box office. The franchise has made $1.4 billion in retail sales. New characters voiced by Jesse Tyler Ferguson, Adam Devine, Jesse J. Michael Strahan, the fifth movie in the Ice Age franchise Collision Course. Wait a minute, I need to pause for a second. The fifth Ice Age movie since 2002? How did that happen? Sure, these movies make money, but do people actually like them enough to justify four sequels? Is there really that much story to tell? Is anyone involved in the series actually passionate enough about Ice Age mythology that they feel the need to extend this story to nearly a dozen hours? The latest entry feels a little played out, as if the film has rewritten, as if the filmmakers are lost the motions. I'm sure that will come as a shock to you, but alas, it's true. Seriously, though, five Ice Age movies. I think I need a drink. Anyway, this time the filmmakers sent that adorable little Scrat chasing an acorn into outer space. Yup. for real, which causes a meteor to fall towards Earth, possibly causing the apocalypse. As a result, the whole Ice Age cast are forced to walk a long distance to do something or other to stop it and meet up with new stuffed animal friendly characters along the way. So it was rewritten. You'll once again get to see Sloss, John Leguizamo, Diego, and Manny Ray Romano getting up to their old arguing stick. Simon Pegg's Buck is back as well and even more irritating than before. Plus, Manny's daughter wants to get married and daddy doesn't approve because that'll eat up some screen time. Pop singer Jessie J shows up as a hippie sloth because why not? The whole lumbering monstrosity then lurches along through a series of bad puns and musical interludes, possibly becoming the first time in history that audiences will actually wish for the apocalypse to hit. That sounds mean, but it's accurate. This ramshackle group of prehistoric characters have been dodging natural disasters that should have wiped them off of the face of the earth for so long now that you can't help but wish it would finally just happen. The original movie was a moderately entertaining distraction, but it's been all downhill from there and getting progressively worse with each outing, despite no real dip in the box office tallies. By part 2, there was essentially no narrative, and the Ice Age movies became a string of lame CGI slapstick sequences and brutal pun laden dialogue delivered by celebrities who can barely contain their contempt for the material. The Passionless series continued purely because the character designs were cute. The jokes were simple enough that children who can't yet grasp language will get it. And, you know, merchandising opportunities. There's an extra sense of desperation to Collision Course, though. The writers, producers, and directors assigned this unfortunate project really had nowhere to go. The whole thing has the distinct feeling of a long delayed direct to video sequel that somehow made it to the big screen. It's tough to sit through, exhausting, really. Even the Looney Tunes style silent comedy of Lil Scrat has lost all appeal. This is the sort of animated movie that parents dread taking their children to, a pandering mess of bright colors, repetition, and later it was time killing that sits on the back of previous successes with absolutely nothing to add. Not even the animation is particularly impressive. It feels like a rush job, as if the Fox at Blue Sky and Fox Animation realized a deadline was looming and then just started recording lines and rendering scenes based on a story scribbled on their hands while racing to the studio in the morning. It's honestly a bit insulting to sit through this mess. It's honestly a bit insulting, particularly in a summer that already delivered the infinitely more enjoyable The Secret Life of Pets and Finding Dory. God willing, this will be the last Ice Age movie. Then again, I thought about the previous three sequels as well. The latest installment in Blue Sky's Ice Age franchise now has another title that you may or may not already know about and a new release date. Deadline recently reported that Ice Age 5 is now officially titled Ice Age Collision Course. Some fans may have already suspected that this would be the official title, especially after seeing this picture from this year's licensing fair. To go along with a new title, the film also has a new release date. Originally set for July 15, 2016, it is now moved to July 22, 2016. This will spare the film from having to compete against Sony's Ghostbusters reboot. That being said, this new date will pit it against Warner Brothers' King Arthur movie, so the film will still have to contend with a big summer blockbuster. Mike Thurmeyer, who co-directed the last two Ice Age films with Carlos Saldana and Steve Martino respectively, will co-directed this film with Galen T. Chu. Ray Romano, John Leguizamo, Denis Leary, and Queen Latifah are expected to return. The Ice Age franchise has long been a mainstay for Blue Sky Studios ever since the first film bowed in 2002. But while its box office prowess remains strong, the last film was the highest grossing animated film of 2012, Reception among critics and animation fans suggests the film's plots have grown stale with each successive installment. Blue Sky has yet to lock down or reveal a screenwriter for Collision Course, but hopefully they can bring on someone who can bring in a fresh perspective and much needed energy to this latest outing. Fox Animation Studios and Blue Sky Studios have officially greenlit Ice Age 5. According to a report by The Wrap, the studio will release Ice Age 5 on July 15, 2016. The four films in the Ice Age franchise have grossed more than $2.8 billion worldwide. No word yet on which voice cast members will return for Ice Age 5. The ensemble for 2012 was Ice Age. Continental Drift included Rise Romano, Denis Leary, John Leguizamo, Jennifer Lopez, Queen Latifah, Aziz Ansari, Joy Behar, Peter Dinklage, Drake, Nick Frost, Josh Gad, Nicki Minaj, Ki Palmer, Josh Peck, Simon Pegg, Sean William Scott, Patrick Stewart, Wanda Sykes, Alan Tudyk, Rebel Wilson, and original Ice Age co-director Chris Wedge, who voices lovable squirrel Scrat. Ice Age 5 will hit theaters 1 week after an unspecified Marvel movie and 2 weeks after Fox releases its Independence Day sequel. The hit animated series hails from Blue Sky Studios, which is owned by Fox. Formerly editor in chief of Animation World Network, Jennifer Wolf has worked in the media and entertainment industry as a writer and PR professional since 2003. The Ice Age movie series has made its home in the hearts of moviegoers of all ages with its sense of adventure, humor, and heart. One of the most famous animated franchises in the world, Ice Age has given us some of the most memorable characters of all time, such as Sid John Leguizamo, Manny Ray Romano, Ellie, Queen Latifah, Diego, Denis Leary, Shira Jennifer Lopez and the Scrat, and later it was Chris Wedge. Ice Age was Blue Sky Studios' feature debut and it became a massive hit. This inspired a series of films and short films stemming from the original story while adding new characters along the way. However, Blue Sky Studios was shut down in 2021 by Disney after they acquired Blue Sky's original distribution partner, 20th Century Fox. That doesn't mean that Disney completely abandoned the franchise. In 2022, a spin off movie called The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild was released, though it mainly focused on Buck, Simon Pegg, otherwise featuring a whole new story with new voice actors. Although another film is potentially in the works, it's unclear if that work will be a sixth Ice Age movie or another spin off like The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild. While we wait for news about the future of the franchise, we can always go for a quick rerun of the entire series. So, here's a quick and comprehensive guide on how to watch the movies and short films in order, both chronologically and by release date. Ice Age movies in order of release date, Ice Age short films in order of release, Datagon Nutty November 26, 2002, No Time for Nuts November 21, 2006, Surviving Sid December 9, 2008 Scratch Continental Crack Up December 25, 2010 Scratch Continental Crack Up. Part 2 to December 16, 2011 Cosmic Scrat Catastrophe November 6, 2015 Scrat. Spaced out October 11, 2016 Ice Ages movies and short films in chronological order. There are no prequels yet. So the best way to watch the films is in the order of release. You don't later it was rewritten. You don't necessarily have to watch the short films to understand the story, but if you want to get the most out of your Ice Age movie marathon, we would suggest you watch in the following order. Ice Age, the first film in the hugely successful franchise, begins with Sid, a silly and empathetic sloth who has been left behind by his kind. He joins forces with Manny, a lone mammoth, on a mission to deliver a human child back to his father. Diego, a saber-toothed tiger, is ordered by the leader of his pride to pursue the child. It was a box office success and grossed over $383 million and was also nominated at the 75th Academy Awards for Best Animated Feature. Gone Nutty is a short film set directly after the events of the Ice Age. It features the story of Scrat after the human baby has been returned. He is yet again having trouble collecting his beloved acorns, trying to store as much as he can. The film was nominated for the 2003 Academy Award for Animated Short Film Ice Age. The meltdown after getting together at the end of the Ice Age, Manny, Sid, and Diego are about to face a life threatening crisis of biblical origins. Manny is dealing with his own worries about being the last surviving mammoth when he finds his true love in Ellie, a female mammoth who thinks she's an opossum. It was a commercial blockbuster as well, earning over $660 million dollars at the box office. Ice Age's second short follows the meltdown into the time traveling adventures of Scrat. Scrat is trying to find a place to hide his acorn after he got it back, but ends up digging up a buried time machine. He accidentally switches it on and is hurled into numerous adventures across various points in human history. Surviving Seed is quite different from the first two animated short features, as it mainly focuses on the adventures of Seed. Set 2 weeks after the events of Ice Age, the meltdown, Sid is trying to adjust to his new role of camp counselor to a school of children. His desperate attempts to please the children lead to hilarious failures, showing why he's not fit for the job. Ice Age. Dawn of the Dinosaurs features the debut of the one eyed deranged weasel known as Buck. He aids Manny and the herd on their quest to rescue Sid from an underground world of dinosaurs. Develop the script, a subtle nod to the Hollow Earth theory. Manny and Ellie have their first child and crash. Sean William Scott and Eddie Josh Peck find a new role model in Buck. Scrat's Continental Crackup releasing Scrat's alongside Gulliver's Travels. Scrat's Continental Crackup is a short parody film depicting the continental drift and centers on Scrat's hilarious adventures that explain the creation of the continents. Scrat's Continental Crackup. Part 2, the second part of the short feature, was released alongside Alvin and the Chipmunks. Jipwrecked. It serves as a teaser for Ice Age, Continental Drift, and continues his eternal struggle of finding the perfect acorn. Ice Age, Continental Drift Ice Age. Continental Drift is set 16 years after the story of Dawn of Dinosaurs, and Manny and Ellie's daughter Peaches Kike Palmer is now a teenager. The herd has to face new earth splitting disasters, quite literally, caused by Scrat's problematic adventures, while also dealing with their personal issues. The film grossed $877 million worldwide and was the highest grossing animated film of 2012. Cosmic Scratastrophe is a 5-minute short film that encompasses the beginning of Ice Age. Collision Course, the fifth full feature film in the series. The film depicts Scrat's acorn pursuing adventures in outer space, which result in an imminent disaster the characters will face in the fifth movie, Ice Age. Collision Course, the fifth movie in the franchise, Ice Age. Collision Course follows the herd being reunited with Buck in an attempt to save the various populations of animals residing on the Earth. Scrat's nefarious adventures have once again caused devastating results, and this time Earth is being targeted by asteroids. The film was a moderate success, earning a total of $408 million worldwide. Scrat. The Spaced Out Scrat. Spaced Out is set at the end of Collision Course and once again deals with Scrat's never ending saga of securing his acorn. This time, he has to fight three more Scrats from outer space, AK. A Scratsons for getting back his acorn, which he hilariously fails despite fighting valiantly. The end as a final goodbye before Blue Sky lost the franchise. The animators created a short giving Scrat what he's been after all this time. He finally gets his acorn in this 35-second long short. The Ice Age Adventures of Buck Wild, the spin off movie, takes Crash, Vincent Tongue, and Eddie Aaron Harris to the Lost World, where they meet Buck after he saves them from almost being eaten by a dinosaur. set generally in their own world without the main characters from the main franchise. The Ice Age Adventures of Buckwild clearly takes place after Collision Course, though some inconsistencies seem to appear. Those seem to be due to the changing of hands from Blue Sky Studios to Disney.